Hello and welcome to the Philgad Market Report. This month we look back on the Fernie market in November 2022. Join with me again is Rob Bain, mortgage professional. Get my words out. And we're going to discuss down payment sources, fixed versus adjustable versus variable, and trigger rates, and also the imminent interest rate adjustment from the federal government coming up on December the 7th. Also, just want to touch on some very important news that was released just this week or last week from the BC government on new legislation regarding the title, Strata title properties. So two really big talking points there that will affect both buyers and sellers. But before we get into that, if you are looking to buy and sell real estate in Fernie, Sparwood or the surrounding areas, then please do get in touch. There is a link below in the description where you can book an appointment directly into my calendar, and also there will be Rob's details if you want to discuss if you want to discuss anything to do with mortgages. I'm going to get straight into my market report for November 2022. Typically a quieter time of year, but we have seen 86% more listings this November than last year, so that's interesting. But down are the actual sold properties, down 13%. To 7 units, and again 7 units represents the whole of the Fernie market, so that's condos, single family homes, land, everything's thrown into the mix on this report. Average prices, so the average list price is really quite interesting this month, down considerably from last month's report to 432,843. Down 20% on this time last year, and the average sale price is also down. I do have a graph at the end, so we'll be able to compare from the last month, but it's down to 419,143, again down 20%. Now that's interesting, but you do have to bear in mind that November is a fairly quiet time of year, so if we're not selling the big ticket items, then the average could be a little skewed there. But we'll reference that at the end here quickly. But what is actually quite interesting is the MSI number, the monthly supply of inventory. It's creeping every month. It's creeping upwards. So this month it's at 4.48. Now, anything above 4 really represents a move towards a balanced market, and it's up 89% on the same time last year. So this time last year we were heading into the crazy sellers market, which we all saw from November to probably April, May of this year. So that's an interesting number this month. But what's quite interesting actually is the sale to list ratio is still relatively high at 97%. It's only 1% down on this time last year. So things are getting sold pretty much at what they list for, only 3% off that. And again, what's also interesting, things aren't staying on the market very, very long really. 47 days actually, it's not that long at all. So what that indicates is when things get listed, they sell fairly quickly still. So we're not seeing a typical buyer's market where lots of properties stay on the market for days on market could be upwards of 90 days. We're actually seeing 47, and that's down 31% on this time last year. So real estate, the Fernie real estate market in 2022, well, it's been a bit of all over the place. I mean, these are the average numbers. So in January we were looking at 569. August we jumped all the way up to 837,000, 100,000. Last month was fairly strong at 650,000, but this month it's the lowest month of the year at 419,143. So again, that could be skewed by the fact that we didn't sell that many properties, and they were, for example, maybe smaller condos. But yeah, it's a good representation of the Fernie market in 2022. So There's my market report for November. Um, November sorry, there's my report for November 2022. Before we start chatting with Rob, I just also wanted to talk a little bit about the new BC government legislation that came in on November the 24th. So the BC government has removed age and rental restrictions from strata title properties. They're the two big changes that I think are going to affect buyers and sellers. So on November 24th, the BC government passed amendments to the Strata Property Act, which take immediate effect. So there's two significant changes, like I said, that will affect buyers and sellers. There is another change that Zoom meetings can now be held for Strata, the Strata Council meetings. But the two significant changes are all rental restriction bylaws are to be removed, except the bylaws for restricting short-term rental such as Airbnb and VRBO. So that's interesting. And then all age restriction bylaws are to be removed with the exception of seniors only 55 plus rules. This means that a strata are no longer allowed to have the 19 plus age restrictions. So two really interesting things happening there. I think there's going to be opportunity for lots of people with these changes, but I think there's also going to be a large majority of disgruntled potential owners, strata property owners, who purchased strata properties, because of the restrictions that they had. So, yeah, interesting. What are your thoughts there, Rob?
Yeah, that's a big change, Phil. I mean, I think it's going to impact both, like you say, both those clients that purchase those properties because of those restrictions. But it's also going to open up a door for, other clients that maybe wanted to be in a property like that but couldn't be in it because of those restrictions. It'll increase some interest in that and perhaps help some of the marketability for those properties in the future as well. So mixed results, I guess, right? It's going to please
Yeah.
some people and probably upset some as well.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting for sure. Yeah, so I'd also like, your comments below if you have an opinion on this. It'd be very interesting. Again, BC government have waded in on some changes. I'm not sure how much of our industry was actually talked to about these, but yeah, very interesting and immediate changes here this month. So that's very interesting. But I know you've got some stuff to talk about today, Rob. So I'm gonna hand it over to you to discuss some mortgage things for the month of November.
Awesome. Well, thank you, and Phil, for having me on here today. Always love coming on and being able to talk about some of these things with you and, of course, your clients or our clients as well. So first thing I wanted to chat about today was down payment sources. And I get this question often from clients asking what they can actually use for down payment when they're making a purchase of a new property. And there's a number of different ways that we can look at this. Some of the more common ones, of course, are savings, right? So that could be accumulated cash in, say, your checking or savings account. We can use those funds, of course, to use towards the purchase of that property. And minimum down payment, generally speak, if we're looking at insuring it, would be 5%. And of course, if we're going conventional and trying to avoid the CMHC or Sagan insurance cost is going to be 20% down payment. So looking at those savings and that cash that you have in your account, most lenders are going to want to see 90 days of statement history showing those funds in that client's possession. Of course, your payroll might be in that account. There might be some other funds that are coming in. So we can generally speaking use those types of statements and funds for the down payment. Of course, investment can be another option as well. So you could have funds in, say, a tax-free savings account or maybe a non-registered account that has some investments as well. So cash goes out. Again, most lenders would like to see 90 days worth of statements showing those funds in your name and in your bank account for that time frame. A couple other options. We have a gift from, say, a parent or an immediate family member. So, mom, dad, grandparent, brother, sister, all those are considered an immediate family member. Most lenders will accept a gift letter that we can provide a template to our client to be able to fill out, basically saying that, hey, we're giving the funds for the purchase of this home and they're not repayable. So, that's the standard definition of gift. Other options, inheritance. Of course, we can use funds from that. Settlement from, say, a marital separation. Not really one that we like to talk about. Another potential option there as well. And, we can look at as well, somebody might be selling a house, buying a new one. So, of course, funds that come from the sale of that property. The lawyer will be providing those upon closure of that deal. So we can use those funds for a down payment. And then in some scenarios, we can look at, looking to pull some equity out of, say, if a client has multiple properties that they own, maybe they have some equity available in one. We can leverage use to purchase another. Maybe they're building an investment portfolio, purchasing a vacation property, or another secondary residence. We can look at leveraging some of that equity that they have in one property and using that towards a down payment of that new property. And then two other quick mentions I should give too for government programs. There's the first time homebuyers plan, which in
Yeah.
essence, if a client has funds in their RSP, so registered savings plan, the government has a program that you can pull out up to 35,000 from that RSP under the first time homebuyers plan. There's no tax when you pull that money out, but of course it has to be repaid over, I believe it's 50 years that they have to repay that amount into that RSP, but then you don't get the tax benefit when you're putting the money back, right? So they basically let
Okay.
you pull it out, use it to buy the house, then you have 15 years to put it back in, but needs to be considered a residence and you need to be considered a first time buyer. So I always encourage my clients check out that federal government of Canada website for the first time home buyers plan. Lots of information there to see if you qualify. And then another government plan is the first time home buyers incentive. So this is a relatively new one, been around for a few years now. And really it's where the government will match up to 5% down on existing homes, or they'll match 5 or 10% down on a newly constructed home that you're moving into. Again, you need to qualify as that first time home buyer. So this needs to be your residence, needs to be your first house, I believe within I think they stipulate in 4 years. So there's a number of conditions with this one. Again, repayment happens for this. You either sell that house or after 25 years. So if you move into the place, stay in there for the long term. After 25 years, you need to repay that portion to the government. So it's not they're not giving you 5% with never getting it back. You do have to
Right.
repay that. So some
Sure.
important as well that I encourage to look at on the website for that one as well if you're interested in that. But there's a number of different down payment sources that we can look at. Lots of clients don't know you can use all of those, so I think it's important to mention them.
Yeah. No. Great. Yeah. Some of them. Yeah. Definitely were some sort of things that I wouldn't immediately think to recommend anyone, and that's obviously why we send clients to you guys to give this advice. So yeah, fantastic.
You bet. Yeah, for sure. So always happy to discuss those with the client. And, maybe there's some other ones that may not fit on that list, but they could potentially be options as well. So our next topic, what's really better? And I get this question a lot lately too. Should I go with term? Should I go with a variable term? And really, I think there's a lot of clients that don't know that there's actually two different types of variable terms. There's an adjustable, and then what we call a true or a static variable. So let's talk about all these. So a fixed term, really the most common term is a 5 year. So what does that mean? Well, that means that your mortgage rate and payment are going to be the same for those 5 years. So you do up a new mortgage, you want to have a payment that you know what it's going to be. You can have comfort in that. Some clients don't like the risk of a payment that moves. that's the way to go in fixed term. So 5-year term, after 5 years, it comes up for renewal. We renegotiate, help you with that. You come back to me as your mortgage broker. I'm happy to look at what the current are, and we look at different options after those 5 years. So to talk about the two variable pieces, we've got the adjustable rate mortgage, which really it's like what it sounds. Interest rate and the payment amount may change over time. We've seen this happen more recently, right? Prime lending rate changes and the Bank of Canada increasing rates. So we've seen prime move from being in the 2% region to being up in the 5.95 region for most lenders. So what does that mean with your payment? Well, with an adjustable rate, as that rate goes up, your payment goes up. So I've seen clients that had that type of a mortgage, and they've had a payment increase over the past 6 months, and some of them that understood fully what their adjustable rate mortgage was. Most of my clients would be in that scenario. They know that their payment's going to go up and down, so they expected that when they heard it. Others that maybe didn't understand how that worked, those are the scary scenarios, because if you're not planning for that and you're not ready for that payment to go up, and all of a sudden that
Mm,
payment that hits your bank account next month is way more than what you predicted,
yeah.
what does that do to your overall financial plan, right? It can be a scary thing. So really important to understand the difference between the adjustable rate, variable mortgage, and the fixed rate. Now, the true variable, or what we call a static variable mortgage, again, the interest rate's going to change based on whatever prime lending rate does, but your payment doesn't change. So it's kind of a blend of both of those pieces. So what it means is really of that payment that goes towards principal, so paying off the mortgage balance, and the amount that's being charged as interest each payment, that relationship is going to fluctuate. So let's take an
Right.
example here and let's think about this to really, I guess, spell it out a little bit more clearly. So if you have a monthly mortgage payment, say of $1,500, and 800 is going towards the principal and 700 is going towards interest, well, your mortgage balance is going to decrease by $800 every time payment's made, because that's hitting the principal. But if rates increase on that variable rate, true variable static mortgage, your portion of the payment of $1,500 that's going towards principal might decrease. So rates have jumped up in recent months. Maybe now only $600 is going towards that principal, and the amount paid towards interest is increased from $700 to say $900. So it's important to realize that your payment's not going to increase, but you're not paying down your mortgage as quickly when rates are going up. Now, if rates decrease, the opposite is true, right? So it's really, looking at that longer term picture, and thinking what's going to happen, as rates go up and down. But I guess the most important piece out of this whole conversation with fixed and variable and adjustable rate mortgages is the client needs to know that all three of those types exist, and they need to understand and really factor in which one's best for their financial situation. If they've got flexibility with income, and they want to try a variable rate because they can handle the payment possibly going up or taking a little bit longer to pay off that mortgage if rates are increasing, but also factor in maybe the potential for rates to go down and for them to be able to pay that mortgage off sooner and take advantage of those lower rates. Then we're probably going to look into those variable term options. Whereas if they need to have a fixed payment because budgeting is important, and cash flow maybe is, I don't want to say tight, but is flexible, then a straight option is probably the better direction for them to head. So I have those conversations with all my clients. I talk to them about what options are out there, and we factor that into their individual scenario to see what fits best to give them that comfort. Because I never want somebody to feel strapped by their mortgage payment, and to really be in that flow challenge on a monthly basis, because we don't want to do that by buying our own house.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For sure. Yeah, good advice. So, did you touch on trigger rates?
I haven't yet. No, we can talk about that though as well, because something that we've been hearing a lot of lately in the news and in different articles online. And really, the trigger rate that comes to happen once the payment no longer covers that accrued interest portion. So really, trigger rate doesn't come into play with a fixed term mortgage, right? Because you know what your payment's going to be, you know what the interest rate is going to be for the entire term. So trigger rate does not impact that. Trigger rate also does not impact an adjustable rate mortgage, right? Because the payment decreasing depending on what the interest rate does. So the only mortgage type or the only term type that a trigger rate really becomes a factor in is a true variable or static variable mortgage, because that's where, again, remember that payment is fixed, the interest rate is moving, right? So
Mm,
so think back to our $1,500 a month payment example there previously. So we're
mm,
paying $1,500 a month. Interest rates have increased. If rates increase far enough that $1,500 no longer covers our monthly interest cost. So remember, we had X amount of dollars going towards principal each month. And as rates increase, more goes towards interest, less goes to principal. So if rates ever get high, that $1,500 doesn't cover the interest cost per month, then you're likely going to hear from your lender, your bank, whoever did the mortgage for you, and they're going to say, "Hey, Rob, rates have increased on your variable static mortgage, and we need to increase that payment because you're covering the interest cost anymore. So we need you to increase the payment to this amount per month." Or you may have the option to put down X amount of dollars as a lump sum to pay down the mortgage to keep it within those parameters. Or they may offer you the option to switch it, perhaps to a fixed rate mortgage, or maybe they offer an adjustable rate as well. But those are the points that come to the surface, I guess, once that trigger rate happens. And we haven't seen a lot of that yet in Canada. And it's been in the news because it's like a what if scenario and something that gets people's attention. With rates and where we're headed, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here as far as the next predictions. But I think that it's a potential, so people know about it. But really, we shouldn't be losing sleep over it quite yet.
cool. Sounds good. Yeah. So let's December 7th. That's correct, isn't it? When the federal government are going to announce their new rate adjustment. So, what are your predictions?
Yeah, so December 7th. So this is each year, each calendar year, the government does eight interest rate announcements, or the Bank of Canada does eight announcements. And really, what I'm hearing from economists, all the big banks have economists that they hire, and they're highly educated individuals that do all this research, these predictions. Most are saying we're going to see either a quarter or a 0.5% increase on December 7th. Really, that's going to push the Bank of Canada's overnight lending rate up into the 4.25 range. That's really where they're wanting to see it to really help that inflation. And it's likely what the economists are saying. It's likely that we'll see it there until late 2023. Of course, if what they're predicting is true. After late 2023 into 2024, as long as we see inflation start to come down over the next 6, 10, 12 months from now, we'll see that consumer price index as well, upping to where their target is at 2%. So if everything comes together as planned, hopefully, and I'm crossing my fingers on this one, but hopefully we will see that many more increases into 2023. We know the consumer price index really peaked in June. There it was at just over percent. October showed that it was down to the high sixes, and the next one comes out, I think, on December 21st. So we'll see. These more recent rate increases have impacted CPI, and really next year, the Bank of Canada's next rate announcement after December 7th is scheduled for January 20th. So we've got a little bit of time before that one happens, and hopefully, I think, made it to the peak of where we're going to see interest rates go. But you know just as well as I do, Phil, that anything can change anytime. So there's no guarantees on that. But I'm hopeful.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'll just see where we go with that. I think people, it is kind of putting some people off purchasing, but as I always say, at the moment, even if interest rates are going up, the actual almost the real cost of some properties is coming down, and especially with I feel the negotiating power that we have more of now. We're getting to a point where the monthly cost is negligible if it's any different. So essentially at the end of the day, that's what we all essentially we're buying a monthly payment when we get a mortgage. And if you look at where house prices were, say in in the first quarter of this year, with what was going on, multiple offers, over asking price, and now you're seeing properties sold under the asking price, and some certain properties you can get a really great deal on at the moment. So even if the interest rate is high, you're essentially, because the prices are getting kind of adjusted, the monthly payment is very, very similar. And what you're also getting, obviously, when you negotiate hard on the price, is you're building more equity into the purchase of your property. So when prices do go back up, you're going to be in a better position because you'll have potentially more equity in the property than you did if you'd purchased at the beginning of the year. So I think there's a real opportunity for buyers at the moment. I do hear a lot of stuff, oh, we're going to hold off until rates come back down. But to be quite honest, when I bought my first home about 25 years ago, this is where rates were. I personally think it's quite normal and healthy to have rates at kind of around this sort of number. So yeah, there's always opportunity in the market. So if you are listening to this and you are looking and wanting to talk more about it, you can speak with me. Absolutely. Below is my link directly into my calendar, like I mentioned at the top, and also Rob's contact details will be below. So don't feel like this is a bad time to buy, because it definitely isn't. There's definitely opportunity for buyers right now in this market. So thanks, Rob. Thanks again for joining me on my market report. As always, really valuable information, advice on the current situation with mortgages. And so until next time, thanks again. And if I don't see you before Christmas, have a very Merry Christmas.